Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to recreate my viral crochet top. So I actually made this top alongside a mini skirt. It has more of like a ruffled jellyfish, floral, fairy vibe. Um, I'll show like videos and pictures of it. I did post it on TikTok and Instagram, and honestly, it got so much engagement. I was actually surprised. It's really shiny as well. The colors are so beautiful, so I understand why it caught a lot of people's attention. For materials, hooks. I used a 5 mm and a 5.5 mm for ruffle. Okay, so for the yarn, I used it's from Loops and Threads. I think it's Faucets. I think that's the name of it. From Loops and Threads, it has 3.5 ounces and 279 yards in 100 grams. So I used one of these to make a extra small, smalls, mediums, I think most of a large. I think if you're extra large, you definitely need two skeins if you're using this particular type of yarn. And this is in the color Flame. I also paired that yarn with sequin yarn. This is sequin gold thread. I hope I'm saying it right. Sequin, yeah. I paired it with sequin gold thread, and this is from Hobby Lobby. Go on Hobby Lobby and just look for it. You'll find it, or on the website, just type in sequin and you'll find it. You don't have to use this exact brand. And I just want to give you a little disclaimer. If you've never worked with this yarn before, especially this yarn, it might be a little difficult to work with, especially if you're a beginner. All the materials that you will need for this project are simple things like scissors, measuring tape for sure, stitch markers, or paper clips. They're not that necessary, but it might be really helpful for you. You don't have to go out and buy it if you don't have it. So before we get started on this, you need to figure out your size. Now, I will put up a list of different charts I use. I kind of like to switch in between like two different charts for sizing. The unfortunate thing about this is that these charts do not really include plus sizes, but you will notice a pattern with them. It just increases 1.5 or 1 to 1.5 or 2 inches more with every size. So I don't have the chart in my face right now, but let's say for like extra large, it says the width of the bras are 9 inches and you're actually a 1X. So I would just add an extra inch on there. And now I'm 10 inches of bra width. Now in this video, I will be making a extra small, and according to most of those charts, extra small, the width of an extra small bra cup would start at like 5 or 5.5 inches. I'm gonna start mine at 5.5. I feel like it's a little better to size up half an inch because of how we are making this bra cup. We are decreasing a lot to create that triangular shape. So it's better to just, bump yours up a little bit. We're cutting off a lot so we can create that triangular shape. Okay, guys, and now we're going to make our slip knot. I did say I am making a extra small, so I'm starting mine off with a chain length of 5.5 inches. I have my measure tape out here. We're making up to 5.5 inches. I'm just creating chains that line up with 5.5. Okay, so I'm just going to create my chains now. So I created 22 chains and they line up to 5.5. You don't want to stretch it, just let it sit right there. And the 0.5 is right in the middle there, so we're at 5.5 for sure. Now, keep count of your chains because you're going to repeat this again for your other cup, okay? We're going to start on our first row. Now, you're going to skip that first chain right there. We're not working into that same chain over there. We're going to skip this, and then we're going to work in here. And we're putting half double crochets all the way down here. So in every chain until we get to the end. I usually go into only one loop instead of two. One more double crochet, and I just worked into the last chain of the row, so this is what we should have by now. I always like to recheck and just measure just to make sure we're on track. We want this over 5 inches, so 5.5, a little over 5.5, but that's fine. Now we're going to start our decreasing. We're going to chain 1, turn your work around like this. Now this is not the official way of making the creases. I'm just showing you how I decrease when I'm making my bikini tops, because I don't like that bulge or like that thick, bulky, stitch on the edge. Like the crease is like really obvious. So I'm gonna yarn over, get right into that first stitch right here, right into that first stitch, yarn over, pull through. Now we have 3 loops, and then I get over there in the second stitch and I pull through another loop. So now we have 4 loops. I yarn over and pull through all 4 of those, and that's what I consider my decrease. Now I usually decrease on each edge, so this edge here and at the end we're just doing a half double crochet into each of these stitches until we get to like the second to last stitch. So we're leaving 2 stitches on the edges so that we can decrease. Now when it comes to decreasing with these tops, I usually have a pattern of decreasing. So the first row will be no decreases, second one I decrease, third no decreases, decrease, no decrease, decrease. That's kind of like what I repeat in my head as I'm making these tops. So this will be a no decrease, decrease, no decrease, decrease, no decrease, decrease. And I do that until I get to, so for extra smalls, I do that until I get to 11 rows. For smalls and mediums, I also follow that. I only work this pattern. I follow this type of pattern until I get to the 11th row. Then from the 11th row, I just keep decreasing on every row after that, because at that point, we need to end the triangle, right? For mediums, for larges and anything above that, I do an extra row. So after the 12th row, I decrease like normal. So now we're just going to put half double crochet into each of these stitches until we get to the end. It's pretty easy. And you're going to get this done really quick. Well, depending on how fast you move. Okay, I've worked all the way to the end, and now I have 2 loops sitting here. Now this can be a little confusing because you wouldn't really notice that this is a stitch here that you need to work in. It's kind of like on the side. So let me see if I can zoom in there. So these are the last 2 loops. This loop right here, I get my nail in there. That's one loop, and then the other one is on the side right here. Yarn over, get into that stitch, pull through a loop, and we have 3 loops on the hook. And now get into that last loop right there, that last stitch, pull through a loop, 4 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through, and then we chain 1. And that's how we have it. We have one, our first row, no decrease, then we decreased on the second, so the third we're not going to decrease. And then we're just putting a regular half double crochet into every stitch until we get to the end. Okay, finished with our third row, and you can somewhat see the shaping already. We're going to chain 1. We did not decrease on the previous row, so we're going to decrease on the next. Chain 1, turn your work, and now we're going to decrease again. So yarn over, get into that first stitch, pull through a loop, get into the second stitch, pull through another loop, yarn over and pull through all 4, and then regular half double crochets until we get to the end of the row. We're leaving 2 stitches to work in at the end. So we're going to yarn over, get into that stitch, pull through, and now we have 3 loops on there. And now we're going to get into that final stitch on the corner that's such in an awkward position. Boom. Wonderful, pull through. Then we have 4 loops, yarn over, and then pull through all 4 of those. So since we decreased that row, we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're doing no decreases in this next row. So just regular half double crochets until we get to the end. So we're going to chain 1, flip your work, and then we're going to decrease here and here. So the first decrease, yarn over, get into that first stitch like we've been doing. We have 3 loops, and then get into the other stitch, pull through a loop. Oops, I messed up there. Then pull through all 4, and now only regular half double crochets until we get to the end of the row. And this is how far I am with the top. Look at how pretty this is. Like, look at that. It's so pretty. But this is how far I am. And you can see like the triangular shape is forming already. You're going to continue that pattern until you get to around the 11th row. So if you are an extra small, and I'm wearing an extra small here. So if you are a extra small, small, and medium, I would work until I will continue the same pattern until I get to the 11th row. If you are a large, extra large, I will do the 12th row. I'm just explaining it, like that's what I would do if I am making an order for a large or extra large. And then if you're a plus size, I would do up to like a 13th row, because the faster you decrease, or like the more you decrease, the smaller you're gonna make the cup. So we want to like stretch things out for a little bit until we make this tip of the triangle, if that makes sense. Okay, I'm back and I am on the 11th row. Let me just count to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. So, like I explained earlier, we're just decreasing on each end for every single row going up from here. Chain 1, turn around. So whenever you get to the top here, things might start to look a little awkward. So I have 3 stitches to work in on this row. So I'm just gonna do one half double, no, one decrease, sorry, right here. Because I mean, I can't do 2 decreases, it's only 3 stitches, right? And then just do a regular half double crochet into the next one. Now I have 2 stitches, which would be this and this, but it looks a little awkward. So now I'm just going to chain 1, turn it around, and then make 1 decrease, and then that will be like the one final stitch. So the goal is just to come down to 1 stitch. So depending on how many stitches you have left, just work with that. This is what the cup looks like. Now, after I make the cup, I like to border the sides just to clean the shape up a little. And I'm going to be bordering the sides with the same 5mm hook that we've been using. And I'm going to be using single crochets to line all the way here, around, up here. So from that last stitch that I made, I'm just going to chain 1. So I kind of like get into the gaps here and work the single crochet. So it's going to get in there and make a single crochet, and I'm just doing that all the way down here and around the entire triangle. And I make a single crochet right in there, but you just want to make sure that you're not putting too much single crochet. Now I'm moving on to this bottom edge, which is a lot easier to work with because you're just going to be working in these same loops. Instead of like with here, you kind of have to like figure out like which gap you want to go through. And then with here, you already know where you're working in. And then when I get over here, I kind of like to make a slip stitch in like the first chain over here. So that's what I'm going to do. And then we're finished with bordering the bra cup. So right in here, and then I slip stitch it. You want that like right in the middle of the cup. So now from here, we're going to work on the strap. So make sure your tension isn't too tight when you're making the chains for the strap, because we're working in here to create the ruffles. I do not count my chains when I'm making these straps, so I don't know how much to tell you to chain. Okay, but when I do make the length, I will come back and let you know how long it is. Okay, so I'm finished working on the chains for the strap, and they are, so this is about 24 inches long for reference. Now and I know I said I like to size up to work on the ruffles, but I'm not doing that because these are straps and you do have to tie this around your neck, and I don't want them to be too bulky and then it's hard to tie. So we're sticking to the 5mm for now. Before I start my ruffles, personally, this is what I've been doing for a while now. I like to skip around 3 chains, start my double crochets in the 4th chain. So now This is the increase pattern that I kind of follow when I'm making the ruffles on the straps. I like to do 3 double crochets in one chain and then 4 in the next. And then I just repeat that until I get down here. So that's what we're going to be doing. Now we have 2 double crochets because the chains are as long as the double crochet, if that makes sense. And then a third into that same chain that we worked in. So we'll count that as 3 double crochets. And then in the next, we're going to make 4 double crochets. So it's the first double crochet, second double crochet, third double crochet, fourth double crochet, and then in here 3 double crochets. I also wanted you guys to keep in mind that if you are using a different weight of yarn, different brand, different material, your ruffles you might have different results with the ruffles. And I'm gonna repeat this until I get all the way down here, which is very time consuming. And then from there, we're going to work our ruffles into these loops over here. I'm finished with my first strap for the bra. This is what it should look like when you're done. Now I'm going to be using my 5.5. You can't really see it because it faded away. But this is my 5.5 hook. And for the increases, it's going to be very similar for what we did for the strap. But instead, what I usually do, what I've been doing for these bras, I will work 4 double crochet increases into the first 2. And then in the third, it will be 5 increases instead. So how it's going to go, it's like 4 in here, 4 in here, 5, 4, 4, 5, 4, 4, 5, 4 increases, 4 increases, 5 increases. Now we're going to start with the increasing. So, and we are working in the front loops. So let's start with our 4 double crochets into that first front loop. In case you're a little confused, I'll explain where we're working in. So this is the front loop. So you see how you have like 2 loops here? We're working to that first one. This is the front one right there. That first loop. We're putting 4 double crochets in there. So 1 double crochet, the second double crochet, third double crochet into that same spot, and the fourth double crochet. Okay, and now we're going to repeat that same thing into the following front loop. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we're going to put 5 increases or 5 double crochet stitches in here. So we want to repeat that all the way down here. And I'm going to meet you when I get to the end here. And then for the last stitch that I'm going to work in here, I like to make it a half double crochet. I just chain 1, tighten that, and cut it. Okay, and then just tighten that. All right, now I'm going to work over here and make a slip knot and then insert that hook into the first stitch on the edge right here. And then I kind of like yarn over, bring that under here, and then I just make a chain. I'm going to make like 3 chains, and basically this counts as like the first double crochet. So since I'm counting this as a double crochet, I only have 3 more stitches to make in here. So let's count the second double crochet, third, and then the fourth. Then I'm gonna work 4 stitches in here, the same thing that we've been repeating, and then 5 double crochets into the next, and then we're going to repeat that same exact pattern with the 4 increases, 4 increases, and 5 increases in the next until we get to the end here. And this is what it's looking like. And again, for my last stitch, I always like to make it the smallest, like a smaller stitch. So for my fourth, I'm going to make it a half double crochet. Then I'm going to chain 1 and just tighten this and cut the yarn. This is what the 2 cups should look like as of now. Next thing we need to do is to make that string to thread through here so we can tie the top and the back. I'm going to use my 5.5 to make the chains. So we're just going to make a long strip of chains until you believe it's long enough. Just as you're chaining, wrap it around, and you could even like tie it, make a bow, and see if that's long enough for you. So mine measures up to around 75 inches. It stretches to 75 inches. I'm going to size down to my 5 point, no, this is my 5 mm. And I'm just going to put a single crochet into every single chain until we get to the end. So you're going to skip that first chain over there, get into that second chain, and you're just single crocheting. And there, we're just single crocheting into each chain until we get to the end. And then I'm just going to chain 1, tighten the stitch or that chain, and then cut it. Now I'm just going to thread the string through the cups. This is usually how I do it. You can use a yarn needle. I just have no clue where my yarn needles are, so I'm just going to use my fingers. So I like to bring it up right on the edge here. Just find a spot to just put that in there. Bring that through there. And then I kind of like put it through like every 2 to 3 stitches. So let's see, I'll do 3. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to make space to put that through there. And I'm going to bring that up the next 3 stitches. That first row is what we're working this into. Okay. And now you're going to repeat the same thing with the other cup. So when you're finished with threading that string in your cups, now we're going to move on working on those ruffled loops. So what you're going to do is count the single crochets that you have at this bottom edge. I have 20 single crochets from here to here. Now what I'm going to do is divide that by 4 because we're doing 4 of, the loops. So you're dividing how many stitches you have into 4. Okay, and those are the single crochets that are going to be between every of the stitch marker. Now, if it's odd and there's one that's a little off, that's fine. Okay, and you're going to make sure you do that on each of these cups. They need to be even because you don't want it to look wonky, so they need to be in the same spot as it is over here. So now we're going to work on the ruffles, the loop ruffles. So I always start mine from here, from the inner corner of the bikini top. Okay, so made a slip knot, and now we're going to work into one of the inner corners. We're going to make a certain amount of chains, and we're going to attach it here. I'm going to get my hook into that single crochet. make a slip stitch, chain maybe like 8 or so. For that first loop, I don't like it to be very long. And then we're going to slip stitch. So bring that yarn over, bring it right in there, and then right through that same loop right there. Boom. You can just tighten this and like flip it around and see if you're okay with that length. Now we're going to start increasing into these chains. Now for the ruffles or the increases, we're going to repeat the same thing we did with the strap. This counts as the first double crochet, and I'm just going to add 2 more into that same spot right there. And then the next, it will be 2 stitches, 3 stitches, 2 stitches, 3 or 3 increases, 2 increases, 3 increases until we get to the end. I'm done with that first round of ruffles. Now we're going to work into that same spot that we started. So that 1 single crochet on the edge here that we worked these chains into, we're going to slip stitch in there again, like so. Yarn over and pull through. Tighten that and chain 1 and tighten that. So now we're going to work on the second set of ruffles. We're going to get into that second spot. So this is mine. But first you want to make a slip stitch in there. And then start making your chains. I made 31 chains. And then I'm going to attach it into that second spot over here. And then make a slip stitch right in there, like so. I'm going to make 3 chains. So 1, 2, and 3. Those 3 chains count as a double crochet. And then we're going to work 2 other double crochets into that same spot. So you're going to follow the same increasing pattern with the 3 increases, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. And then we're going to work a single crochet into that spot that we first worked in, right there. Not single crochet, I'm sorry, a slip stitch. And then boom, and then we tighten that a little. We don't want that loosen. We don't want it to loosen, sorry. And we're going to chain 1, tighten that, cut the yarn, and pull through. Now we're going to work on the third. So we're repeating the same thing. It's pretty easy. Going to make a slip knot again. Going to get that hook into that spot that we're going to be working in. Create that little slip stitch before we start making the chains. Tighten that. Not too tight. And then we're going to start our chains. You don't want to make your chains too tight because they're going to be difficult to work into when it's time to, increasing. Okay, so for the third loop of ruffles or whatever, I created I think 44, 45 chains. So now we're going to work into that next spot. They should be mirroring each other, see? And slip stitch. I'm going to make 3 chains. And then we're doing the same thing that we did with the first and the second loop. This is what they're looking like as of right now. And now I'm going to just slip stitch into that same single crochet that we started in. All right, guys. So for the last loop, I made 60, I think 60, around 62 chains. I made 62 chains. And then I slip stitch in here. So now I'm going to work in here. All right, guys, we're finally done. So this is what uh it should look like. Now the last step is to weave in our ends. In case you're a beginner and you're just a little confused about the weaving in thing. So weaving in your leftover yarn here is just hiding it within like these stitches. I'm gonna show you a little glimpse of how I weave in my ends. Sometimes I like to size down. So right now, this is the smallest hook I have on hand. So I'll just use this for now. Make sure it's at the back of the bra. I get the hook right under the stitches in the back. So notice how I'm not coming up in the front. The back stitches is what you're focusing on because you don't want to see it tucked in from the front. Okay, just like that till I get to the edge near here because we want to pull that in here right up under here. See? And then I yarn over and then I pull this through all of here. And then we're just going to pull this up here. And then I'll probably do it again until it gets like over here. And then I cut it and I stretch it out. And that's basically how I hide these leftover yarn strings. But before I end off the video, I just want to say thank you so much for the engagement. Thank you for watching. I would love to see your creations or your inspo of this set or this ruffle top. You can tag me. Thank you.